Can we aim for the legs? Can we shoot someone in the legs in self-defense? Well, yes and no. So let's break this down, okay? There's some assumptions. There's some backstory here because people, when they say, "Well, shoot them in the legs to stop them," they're really looking for three things. Number one is that you assume that you can hit them in the leg. Remember, this is a moving target. Number two, you assume that shooting them in the leg will stop them. And number three is you shoot them in the leg, they won't die. Those three assumptions are actually very problematic. So at the high level, it's not a problem to shoot someone in the leg. In the laws of self-defense and the use of deadly force, it's not a problem if we happen to shoot someone in the leg, that's all you see, you miss, you incidentally hit the leg, that's not a problem. It's a problem if you're intentionally shooting the leg, intending to stop someone, intending to not kill them, right? Here's why. First of all, the leg moves. So practically speaking, show me under stress that you can hit someone who's not moving, so someone big who's not moving. Then we'll talk about hitting a small target that's not moving. Then we'll talk about small targets that are moving, right? So that's a much, much, much higher skill required. And the average person who says this to me probably doesn't have a lot of skill. Not personal, I'm not picking on you personally, but just, I know that may hurt a little bit, but it's okay. The next thing is, the leg is mostly muscle, right? Skin, muscle, tendon, bone, and nerves, and then blood vessels. So of the leg, if we just take the cross section here, if we were to shoot someone in the femur and break the bone, that'll probably do a good job stopping someone from being violent. On the other hand, if they have a gun, they can collapse on the ground and still be extremely dangerous and still be shooting at you. So just because you broke the bone doesn't really stop. Now, if the person has a contact weapon, knife, hatchet, sword, chain, shovel, bat, then you break the femur, that'll probably stop them from being violent. So you're already talking about a very narrow use case, only for a person who's stationary, only for a person who's using a contact weapon. We're not talking about someone who's mobile because it's too hard to hit, and we're not talking about someone who's got a weapon, okay? Or a gun, I should say. Next, if we hit the femur, right next to the femur is the femoral artery, the blood vessel that's running right on the inside, like where my seam is. The femoral artery is right on the inside, it is big, and if we break that, such as if we break the femur and pieces of broken bone cut the femoral artery, that can then begin a timer. We're talking earlier about switches and timers. That's a timer that will run for about 2 minutes before the person bleeds to death. It depends on the severity of the bleed, depends on their heart rate, depends on how much someone is adrenalized and how much how big they are, how much blood volume do they have, depends if they're on drugs. But still, we're starting a timer that within 1 to 3 to 5 minutes, this person will bleed to death or bleed to the point of unconsciousness and then maybe be very hard to save. Probably not enough time for the ambulance to come and save them. So how wide is the target to hit the femoral artery? Let's call it 1/10 of the leg, right? It's shooting them from the front. Let's say you could hit a 10% chance of hitting the femoral artery. Maybe you hit a 10% chance of hitting the bone. And if the bone breaks in such a way that it cuts the artery, that might be a 15 or 20% chance that you sever this artery. Now the person's going to bleed to death before an ambulance can arrive. So like that fails on this third test, which is the assumption that if we shoot him, the person's not going to die. Shoot him in the leg, the person's not going to die. When we talk about the rules of self-defense and deadly force, you have to be reasonable. That means if you're doing something and like it makes sense to you, but you're being weird and that doesn't make sense to someone else, that fails the test of reasonableness. So I'll give you an example. I want to shoot you, but I want you to be alive and well and happy. That's weird, right? Nobody does that. If I shoot you, I understand that may likely cause your death. Now, I might shoot you and I hope that you don't die, but hoping and expecting are totally separate things, right? So if I expect you to live and I shoot you in the leg and I use deadly force to shoot you, and I expect you to live, that's unreasonable. That is unreasonable expectation. I can't shoot you and then think that you're going to be just fine, right? It doesn't work like that. That's people who have watched too many movies. So let's rehash. High level, it's okay to shoot people in the legs. It's not wrong. Sometimes that's the best targets presented. We will definitely shoot the pelvis and break the hips because that will drop someone on the ground and make them much less mobile. That itself may solve the deadly force problem, and they have a likelihood of surviving that. Having said that, we don't try to shoot for the hands, the arms, and the legs on purpose generally. We don't shoot them on purpose because the likelihood of stopping them is very, very low, because someone with a shot through the muscle, shot through the bones, they can still be perfectly alive and perfectly dangerous. Now, even if we do manage to break the arteries, causing them to begin that timer of bleeding to death, they're still going to be alive and dangerous and functional for the next 2 minutes probably. So that fails your second goal, which is trying to stop them, right? So in other words, shooting them in the leg to try and keep them alive and try to stop them is a failure on all counts.